Hey everyone, welcome to the RTS Guided Programming Coaching Call. I'm Mike Tushir. Got a good call for you today, short call. Not a whole lot of questions have come in since the last one, which is not a big deal. But we'll get these questions answered and get you guys moving along with your day. Alright, first up we've got this video of some deadlifts. The email says, can you have a look at these deadlifts? I'm trying out sumo for a while because no matter what I do, I can't get a flat back pulling conventional. Sumo feels like I can get much tighter and flatter. The first rep in this video is sumo, the second rep is conventional, the third rep is sumo from the front. I'm curious as to your opinion on sumo versus conventional, what I can do to improve in general on my sumo form. It's only the second workout where I pulled sumo. I'm sure there's plenty of things I can improve on. When the bar goes above my knees, I have a hard time keeping the bar in contact with my legs. Should it be dragging along the leg all the way to lockout? Good question. So let's go ahead and take a look at your video. So those side views were definitely most helpful. So I'm going to back up and we're going to look at those side views again. So I wanted to stop the video here because this is more or less your start position. Your hips are super, super high. You're almost knee locked. And this is essentially your start. The bar's a couple inches off the floor, but your start position is not terribly different from this. So that indicates to me that there's a tightness issue. Part of it's mechanics, like, yeah, I know that if your shoulder blades aren't over the bar and the bar's over your midfoot and all that stuff, that the bar isn't going to move off the ground. So there's a mechanical requirement to getting the bar to move. But there's also a lot of variability. There's a lot of joint angles that will produce that mechanic. And the joint angles that you're exhibiting here show me that you're not very tight in the bottom. You need to get tighter. You need to, so let me try to phrase this another way. Let's back up again. Let's talk about how you're setting up. So here, you're not lifting yet. You're still in the setup. And you can see that your hips are much lower. And if this was your start position, that would be a pretty good one, and we would maybe want to see your chest a little bit higher, but this is a pretty good sumo start position. Your hips are far behind the bar, which is going to mean that it's harder to break the weight off the ground, but it'll be a lot easier at lockout. So what you need to do to get this into this as a starting position, so I mean, just kind of look at the video. What would have to happen for the bar to come off the ground while you were in this position? You would have to be a lot tighter in your torso. You would have to be raising your chest, from the beginning. So what happens is that you're not as tight as we want you to be. So you get a ton of hip rise when you start. Now, I think mechanically you can break the weight off the floor in the position that you're in. Your shoulder blades are over the bar's over your midfoot. Like, there's no reason that the mechanic for where you're at right now has to be a bad one. Now, what you'll see is as your hips come up and your knees push back, you're still staying over the bar, but it just means that you're transferring that load to some muscles that can take it. So let's watch what happens here. So what I want you to do, do some pause deadlifts. Either incorporate them, they are probably in your program already, but for now, I would incorporate them as part of your warm-up. So what I mean is, as you start working the weight up, I want you to get into uh, let's say this position. Get into this position with your hips a little bit lower. Try to bring your chest up a bit more, put some tension on the bar by raising your chest up. Um, and then with the lighter weights, you want to break the weight off the floor with your hips low like that, and then pause there for a 2 count, and then go ahead and complete the rep. Do that on your first, let's say, 2 to 3 warm-up sets, just to help you kind of get a feel for that bottom position and get a feel for what that's like, what it feels like. And then from there, you'll gradually be able to scale into some heavier weights. What I would like to see is that lower start position. Let's go ahead and take a look at your conventional, but that's mostly the same type of issue. It's just basically a straight leg deadlift, which isn't necessarily bad. It's not necessarily wrong, but if you're trying to get into a flat position, you're going to have to drop your hips a bit lower and bring your chest up. Now you have really long legs, really long thigh bones, so that's going to be a problem in general. You're probably squatting with a wider stance, which you should be, you need to be, and sumo deadlifting is probably a better fit for you. So I would give it a try, but in either case, we're talking about dropping your hips a bit lower. You're pushing your knees over the bar, which is going to help you as well. Um, but bringing the hips lower and bringing the chest up is going to help you flatten out that back. Alright, got another form check video here. This time is for squats, focusing on squat depth. Yeah, I would say depth on all of those looked fine to me. The second one was a bit borderline, but yeah, it's still, all the other ones looked great. While we're here, let's talk a little bit about technique. Your bottom positions are good. I'm just a little concerned that, well, I guess concern probably isn't the right word, but you're very extended at the top. Your lower back is very extended through this region. Um, that's not a problem, but I mean, if you hear, and this is more for other people who maybe are experiencing other problems, if you ever hear about somebody having issues with something like butt wink or something like that, a lot of times you can fix that by just not being so extended. If you just brace the abs, you lock down your ribs, and maintain a neutral spine position, that a lot of butt wink issues and stuff like that tend to go away. But yeah, depth is good on all those, and I don't really see any issues with those. Okay, next question up says, I'm going on holiday between the 27th of August and the 6th of September with no access to weights, possibly dumbbells going up to 10 kilos and a few machines at best. Should my guided programming be adjusted for this? Should I treat it like a deload and continue with the plan as normal? Or should we move the test date back a week or so to accommodate the holiday? I have no meet planned at present. Let's see, August 27th to 6th of September, and your peaking date, your test date's going to be October 11th. So you'll be a month away from that. Um, I wouldn't necessarily worry about it. Um, it's just 1 week off, so it will. I mean, it's not great for your momentum, but it's not the end of the world. I would maybe pump a little more volume in there the week before you leave, but then the week that you get back, I would try to just do a moderate volume, train as normal as much as possible, and I think that should have you pretty well taken care of. Okay, next question says, I recently decided to switch to flat back deadlifting Since almost no great sumo pullers in the IPF have flat backs. Since almost all great sumo pullers in the IPF have flat backs. My round back deadlifts are also grinders at the top of the movement, even if it's not yet a 9 RPE, and I always get minor injuries in my low back. Is my current deadlift flat enough? Please comment on whatever else you see that can be improved. So let's go ahead and take a look at that video. Alright, got the video here for you. Good question. So your question, the way you phrased it is my back flat enough? Is my current deadlift flat enough? So let's see if we can stop it in the bottom position here. That's more or less your bottom position. You get a little more rounded in the later reps, but that's pretty good. Yeah, I don't have any complaints about that. But really, what this question asks is this flat enough? It's a question that you have to answer. You know, I mean, for me, rounded is flat enough, assuming that you know and understand what you're getting yourself into. And there's a whole range of things in between. As long as you're not flexing under load, you know, I've said in the past that I'm okay with that. So the position that you're in is fairly flat. No issue there. The only thing that I did see that I thought was an issue is you do have a lot of movement in your back. Um, just a lot of movement during the setup and everything. I'd like to see you bracing harder and getting tighter. Um, that's kind of vague advice, I know, because you're never tight enough. You're never as tight as you could be. You always have to get tighter to get to the next level in strength. But that's something that I would like to see is a bit more torso rigidity from you in the start. Um, what you're showing here is not bad. It's definitely not bad form. It's just kind of the next step for you, I think, is improving that torso rigidity. All right, next question says, since I switched from round back to flat back deadlifts, my training weights have dropped significantly by about 40 kilos. With that said, is it a good decision to swap out the deadlift variations to beltless deadlifts on priority 4 day to reinforce the technique? Since I probably will not be burned out from doing 2 competition deadlift movements in a week. If yes, should I switch back to doing deadlift variations when I feel like I've dialed the technique in, or when the weights I'm pulling flat back can now match my round back numbers? So I don't think that I would swap out exercises. I mean, doubling down on your competition technique. Um, I think the other deadlift variations that we have in there can still be beneficial to you. So let's think about like our deadlift training. So you have competition deadlift once a week, and then let's say pause deadlifts. Well, that pause is going to help you to learn. It's going to help reinforce that bottom position because you have to maintain that position statically. So I think it would be good for you to do stuff like that. And rack pulls and deficit deadlifts and stuff like that, that's going to help you more than hurt you. So you want to continue to reinforce good technique on all those movements because they still require you to maintain a flat back position. I don't think it means that you need to forego exercise variations and stuff like that. 40 kilo drop is a big drop, but it's not unheard of, and it happens quite a bit for people that are trying to go from round back to flat back. Um, I just want you to treat it like it's a brand new movement, like a flat back deadlift is a different exercise from a round back deadlift. Keep your PRs separately, track your progress separately, and so on. Um, yeah, I think that is a good way for you to move forward and to hopefully reinforce this technique over the long term. And then the next question kind of goes along with that. It says, on average, how long do these adjustments take for the weights to be on par with what I was pulling around it? I'm hoping to get used to the adjustments in time for my meet on November 22nd, 2015. I don't know. I don't have a good answer for that. My gut feeling is that being ready by November is going to be quite a stretch. It usually takes a long time to make this transition. It doesn't always take a really long time, but it often does. And I mean, it could take a year, you know. It might never work. You know, I've worked with some people who've tried and tried for a long time, and it's just never worked. And every time the weights start to get heavy, they go back to a rounded position and so on. And we've tried everything we could think of, and you know, it just never bounced back. So I hate to paint a bleak picture for you, but I would rather, you know, come into this with good expectations to start. Um, it's probably going to take longer than you expect. However, no one knows, including me, how long that's going to take. So the best thing that you can do is focus on improvement. That's the best thing any of us can do at any stage of our training, regardless of things, whether things are going well or not. Focus on improvement. Get a little bit better this week than you were last week. And if you can do that, then we're moving forward, we're making progress, and you'll get there as quickly as you can. So that would be my advice, just focus on improvement. Next question says, am I supposed to use track on days that I won't train? Yes. The ideal is to use track every day, or at least as close to every day as you really can. Next question up says, I've read the determining working weights file, but I'd like some clarification. I use my current estimated 1 rep max to determine my target weight for the day. But if my second workup set is at 95% feels easy, how should I decide how much to add for my top set? Should I use the RPE chart to calculate it? No, at that point I wouldn't use the RPE chart to calculate it. Just use the calculation to find your target weight, and then just kind of edge yourself into it. So if your target weight is 100 kilos, and then you do 95 kilos, and it feels easy, then go up over your target weight a little bit. So maybe 102, you know. If we're talking about 200 kilos, you might go to 202, maybe 205 at the most. But, you know, you just edge it up a little bit. You go over the target weight a little bit. Now, let's say the goal weight or the goal is to do, your target weight's to do 100 kilos for a triple at a 9 RPE. And, you know, that workup is easy, so you go to 102. And that's an 8 RPE. Well, that's quite a bit lower than a 9, so I would do another set, you know, take another set. This might work out a little bit better if I draw it. Get the trusty old notepad here. So if the target is 100 kilos for a triple at a 9 RPE, and you do 95 for a triple at a 7 RPE, then you know things are going really well. So you might go 102 for a triple. Let's say that's only an 8 RPE. Well, then go up again. You know, I know that that's supposed to be the top set, and you're already over your target weight, but it's still only a triple at an 8, and you're supposed to get to a triple at a 9. So at that point, I'd go to 107 or something like that, and that's probably going to get you where you need to be. Now let's rework this example a little bit. Let's say you do 95 for a triple at a 7, and then you do 102 for a triple. You say 95 for a triple at 7. Man, that's pretty good. So we'll go 102 for a triple, and that turns out to be an 8.5. Well, at this point, even though it's below a triple at a 9, that's close enough. Usually within a half an RPE is close enough, because taking another triple, another high-intensity triple like that, it could put you over, and we'd rather see you a half a point under than a half a point over. So at this point we say, well, that's close enough. And if we acknowledge that there's some fatigue gained from this set, we say that's pretty much bang on. So yeah, so hopefully that sheds a little light on that and what you guys can do in terms of selecting those weights, how to select your target weights, and what to do with those in the workout. All right, next up, this question says, appreciate the follow-up on the last call. Sent my entry form for the November 21st, 22nd meet, so that's 100% the date I'd like to use whenever targeted programming is best to begin. As for this question, in my meet video you commented I may be stronger in the bench with a wider grip. I happen to have since switched to a max IPF grip and I'm hitting regular PRs, so I think it suits me better. Cues wise, I'm focusing on hitting low enough on my chest to allow the use of leg drive cue and pull the bar slightly down, enabling a slight tuck. Drive the elbows out, bring the bar to the chest on the way down, then press slightly toward the face on the way up. I appreciate a good video, might be more useful, but is there anything in particular you would focus on when benching with a max grip? I think you've pretty much got it. I think you've pretty much, from what you've described there, that's what I would go with. Now, as you kind of move along and as you kind of evolve into this new technique, I hope that your cues get shorter and shorter and eventually non-existent. But I mean, that's quite a ways away, I think. Your cues are a little bit wordy. So if you're actually thinking in whole sentences, that's a little bit concerning. But I mean, do what you need to do to have good execution here in the beginning. Later on, it might be a little bit easier to manage. All right, next question says, I noticed during your squatting that you opt for thumbs over and keeping your wrist neutral, so no need for wrist wraps. Is this something you've developed over time to deal with overuse issues, or has it always allowed you to optimally display your strength and back tightness? This is something that I've done for as long as I can remember. I used to have a really, really wide grip, like hands all the way out to the sleeves. But, I mean, that's when I thought, well, I'm a big guy. That's what big guys are supposed to do. And since I've learned a lot better, so I mean, I've been doing this for quite a few years. And this grip now, it suits me quite a bit better. You also have a follow-up that says, whenever I try thumbs over the bar, it tends to roll down my back in my hands, or I don't feel secure at top weights, but I like to enable taking some stress off of my elbows and tendonitis. Let's see. I'm not sure why taking your thumbs from around the bar should cause the bar to roll. Maybe a video would help with that. But, I mean, the bar doesn't really rest in my hands anyway. Like, I have forward pressure on the bar, like, toward the front of my body, but I'm not really supporting the weight up in the upward direction with my arms at all. And really the forward pressure is just something, I mean, that's just shoulder flexibility, that's just because my shoulders tend not to bend that way real easily. So, getting under a bar, there's a bit of forward pressure, but there's not really any upward pressure. I'm not sure what would cause it to roll, but that maybe is something that we could see via video. Next question up says, I'm currently deadlifting flat back with shoulders in the back pockets cue. I'd be very interested to read or hear more about your pressure breathing technique and how you choose to brace your core in general, same for squats. In my deadlift, I find I often struggle to get my bracing perfect in the first rep, meaning recently my deadlift for reps tend to be much stronger than my singles. Also, switching to an Inzer 13mm lever belt has likely had an effect on my setup, but overall I just feel I need to get more air in immediately before I pull. If I take a big breath at the top, I find by the time I'm in place to pull, I've lost a lot of that air. I feel this is the main point that's holding me back from my top NPRs in the deadlift, and likely why my deadlift underperformed in my meets versus training numbers. I seem to be getting stronger setting my grip and locking my lats first than getting my breath immediately before pulling. The pressure breathing thing, I tell people a lot that I don't really know where it came from or how it came from, like how it came about. Um, it just is something that I started doing. Um, I'm not even sure when exactly I started doing it. Um, I can tell you that when I do it, I feel tighter. I can also tell you that other people have done it and have came back to me and said, um, hey, that's a really great technique. When I do it, I feel tighter, and I can deadlift more weight that way. However, uh, we have to consider that the people who tried it and thought, man, that feels really stupid, they don't usually come back and tell me about it. So my selection is pretty biased on that. With that said, if it's something that's interesting to you, try it and see if you feel tighter. If you do, then use it. If you don't, then don't. Um, Regarding core bracing, in the last year, I've had to really focus on locking my ribs down, uh, making sure that I'm maintaining a neutral spine, neutral pelvis, because in the past, I would get a little bit overextended. And when I get overextended, that irritates the hamstring tendon. I've had some injuries in that hamstring tendon, and it gets irritated if I'm too extended. So I really focus on locking down my ribs to maintain that neutrality, and that seems to alleviate any of that sort of pain. So that's the kind of stuff that I'm thinking about when I approach the bar. It's just pretty much the same for a squat and a deadlift. Next question up says, it dawned on me today that I might have a mild groin pull. Should I go lighter in the squats or just rest the leg? Well, in general, if you're having pain doing the movements, then it needs to be rested to let things heal. We generally don't advocate that you work through pain issues and stuff like that. So in that case, and with that in mind, I would say that you need to rest it. Um, there are, we've gone over kind of the reintroduction protocol in the past. If you search for injury uh, in the guided programming forum, I think you'll find something that will come up, something that's going to talk about the reintroduction protocol. Reintroduction is usually about 4 weeks, and it consists of starting super, super light and getting gradually heavier until you get back to a moderate weight and you can return back to normal training. But the whole idea is that you need to train pain-free, or at least as close to pain-free as we can reasonably get. And if you've got a groin pull or something like that, then that needs time to heal in order for that pain to go away. So I would start off by waiting until you can do body weight movements pain-free, and then check out some of those past calls regarding injuries and the reintroduction protocol. That will help you figure out what you need to do in terms of coming back once you are pain-free. Next up, I got an email from a lifter who just completed his first competition. Didn't go quite how he expected it to go. Missed a couple lifts. Total should have been a bit higher, but basically had some back spasms and stuff like that caused some issue. Um, yeah. Also some issues in the bench as far as not being used to having a handoff. Um, yeah. Yeah, it seems like lower back spasms and a bit of hip pain is, the biggest cause for issue in terms of the meet prep here. So the question is, moving forward, I'd like to get back on track with my left hip and lower back spasms. Nothing feels injured, and foam rolling has helped tremendously with the left hip. believe the lower back spasms will subside. Also, with proper attention to stretching, what's the best approach moving forward? Um, Now, in terms of back spasms and random hip pain and stuff like that, we get out of my area pretty quickly. Um, if it's an ongoing thing, then I would get it checked out. If it's not an ongoing thing, then it might be something that gets better with a little bit of rest. So avoiding things that set it off, um, stuff like that is going to be the way to go, at least in the beginning. Um, in terms of just something else that I noticed in your email that would be worth mentioning, um, if you don't take a handoff in training, in the bench, if you don't have a lift off, then you don't have to have a lift off when you go to the meet. It'd be a little bit hard to convince people, especially considering it's your first meet. You might have to, really stand your ground on that and tell them that, no, I just want to do it the same way that I do it in training. But you don't have to have a lift off. I don't take a lift off myself because in training I've, trained without a partner and I lift off to myself all the time, so I'm used to it. So having a lift off in a meet would throw me off. So I just tell them no handoff, and they respect that. So that's something that you can take with you maybe next time that hopefully will help out. This next question says, as it looks right now, I tend to overestimate my RPEs for squat and deadlift. I can often push harder if I just put the weight on the bar, as you mentioned to me a few times. Do you think it may be a better idea to just record myself and look at the video after the set and then estimate the RPE from that to calculate the weight? Or more generally, uh, what should I do knowing that my subjective RPE for these lifts is always higher than I think it is, um, or my subjective RPE. Basically, your subjective RPE is um, lower than your actual RPE is lower than you think it is subjectively. Um, he goes on to say, I think I'm at a point where I could easily add more weight to the bar. I'm just trying to figure out how to do it safely and within the program. I think so. This is from a lifter. We've had these conversations in the past, so I'm not just making this recommendation for everybody. This is for this person in particular. Alex, I think what you should do uh, next week, I want you to try something. Let me get the old notepad here because I want to kind of describe what I'm saying. Take your last set and do an AMRAP. So if it says squat, um, triple at 7, triple at 8, triple at 9, plus 1 down set, load drop. What might that look like? Might look like 70 for a triple at 7, or 90 for a triple at 7, 95 for a triple at 8, and then 100 for a triple at 9. So that will be your top set. Then you go back to 95. But here on your last set, just rep out with it. See how many you can get. Um, you could, like as you suggested in your video, you could go back and review the video each time and just, make your RPE off of that. But what I really want you to get better at what it feels like. I want you to get better at the subjective piece. I want you to know how slow you can go and still complete a lift. So what I'm hoping to achieve by this, so if we take a fairly heavy weight and do an AMRAP with it, and you know, you said 100 for a triple was a 9 RPE, and then you take 95 and do 10, then we know 100 probably wasn't a 9 RPE. So this is going to do a couple things. First, it'll help you calibrate your own internal RPE chart. Second, it's going to help us calibrate our RPE charts as well, because what's happening, and I've seen you post a few videos online and get RPE feedback. Some have been from me and then others from the larger community. um, we're all telling you what we think, and there's good reason behind that, but we don't really know how you perform as a lifter when you're pushed. So the only way to really find that out is to push it a little bit. I mean, what if you do, you know, what if, like, let's say a video review, you do 100 for a triple. You said it was 9 RPE, and then a video review looks more like a 7 RPE, which is, I think, something that's pretty typical. But then let's say you do 95 and only get, 4 reps. Well, I would say in that case, you were probably more correct with your initial assessment of 100 being a 9 RPE. And that's something that's possible. Um, but it's also possible that you turn in 95 and do 10 reps, in which case we're both way off. Your actual RPE would have been more like a 6 or something. So we need to push it a little bit to find out what you're really made of, and I think this is a good way to do it. So next week, you don't have to do this for all of your slots, but where you can, I would encourage you to give this method a try. It's going to help you figure out where your RPEs are at. All right, guys, that's it for today's coaching call. Like I said, it's a little bit shorter, quite a few videos in today's call. So I hope you enjoy. I hope you learned a lot. And remember, as far as this week's training goes, as always, take what's there, build some momentum. We'll see you next time.